Hi everyone, my name is Courtney and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a TBR mixed with a recommendation. It is the fall season, everybody's favorite season, including mine. I miss having a real fall very much. But even in Southern California, it's starting to get colder here, so everybody, including myself, wants an atmospheric read, wants a spooky read, and so I wanted to recommend some books and then talk about what I'm planning to read. Not been watching my channel for a while. I actually did a series almost 2 years ago. I started doing this series where I was using other booktubers' YouTube recommendation videos to kind of compile a list of what were the best reads seasonally based on not just vibes, but again, what other people were recommending. And I will link that video if you want to watch it. I started the series by doing fall. It doesn't have a lot of views, that whole series, but I'm really proud of it. I'm glad I stuck with it, that I did every single season. It was so much fun to create, and now I really feel like I understand the seasons very well. But you can get more recommendations from that series if you want more. If you want to see what other people recommend a lot, there's that. But now with the knowledge that I've learned, I can recommend a lot of good stuff, and hopefully it will be some newer stuff that I didn't talk about in that video. Of course, we do have to talk about one book from that video, a little sneak peek so you can go and watch that series, and that is going to be If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. I am not the biggest mystery thriller reader, but I picked this up. I had heard a lot about it. I'd heard a lot of great things, and so if you need a mystery thriller, if you need that vibe, even if you aren't a big mystery thriller reader, I do highly recommend for this to be one of the ones that you do read. If We Were Villains is kind of one of the older titles that is always up and coming as a dark academia title that people recommend. The book takes place in college with a bunch of Shakespeare actors, and it's kind of this mystery, what is going on between these people? We know that one of them has done a crime. We're trying to figure out, did they actually do it? How did they come to that? The characters are very messy and just like not great people, and that's why I loved it. I was totally on the edge of my seat reading this. I was really engrossed. I know it won't be for everybody. The characters, again, are pretentious, but I really fell in love with this. I fell in love with M.L. Rio's writing. They have a new, really short novella coming out very soon that's horror, so I'm very excited to see more by them. This is a tried and true favorite for a reason, so if you haven't picked it up yet, I do highly recommend it. For my next read, I have to go with another classic example. When going into the cozier, colder months, a lot of people are recommending a lot of fantasy because for whatever reason, that's what we feel. It's time to pick up a very big, chunky book. I personally feel like a lot of fantasy is more summer geared. It's a lot more epic, and while those are great to read during the time, they might not fit the actual aesthetics of fall. So again, this is a tried and true. This is a classic already. It's very much beloved, so it's not like a new, unforeseen recommendation, but I do have to recommend it, and that's going to be Gideon the Ninth, or the Locked Tomb series by Tamsin Muir. And this is perfect for Halloween. It's perfect for fall. It's got the spookiness, it's got a little bit of body horror, it's got the aesthetics that you're looking for, it's got bone magic and death magic and all of that juiciness. But basically this is about necromancers. We have Gideon, who is this young woman who has been trying to get off her home planet for a very long time. She's definitely not treated well there. But Harrow, who is like the leader of this planet, but who is also a young girl, is like, hey, I will help you get off this planet. I will finally let you leave if you do one more thing for me. And so together they are traveling to this new planet so that Harrow can become a all-powerful lector. And from there, it's kind of like a weird murder mystery plot, at least for this first book. Every single book in the series is totally different from each other. It's confusing, but like in the best way possible, and I just really love the series. I love hearing people talk about it. If you need the necromancy vibes, this is what you gotta go for. This is like the sci-fi fantasy that is actually gonna give you the fall body horror gruesomeness that you actually need. It's weird, but it's wonderful. Pick, I had to go with something that again might not necessarily have the epicness that people are looking for in this season, but do fit the actual vibes of fall. And for that, I picked Empress of Salt and Fortune, or the Singing Hills series. This is a novella series that I absolutely love. It's about a monk who is basically going around and finding stories, collecting stories, and the first two especially just are some of my favorite, and they definitely have that kind of eerie, darker vibe to them that like come around, I'm recounting this story to you. It's elegant. This first one I especially love because it uses objects to like kind of tell the story. But if you are looking for the vibe of like getting around a campfire and telling ghost stories, this series is definitely for you. I feel like it definitely fits the vibes that I was looking for, and I want more people to read it because it's a really, really good series. The next book I have to recommend is actually what kind of inspired me to do this recommendation slash TBR style video, and that is A Deadly Education, which is my current read. It's a fantasy with a dark academia edge to it, and it's one I never thought I would pick up, honestly. It wasn't at the top of my list, but then someone said that the main character was a bitch, and I was like, oh, perfect, I definitely want to read this. And I can concur. She is in fact very rude and very bitchy, and I love it. But A Deadly Education is a adult fantasy novel by Naomi Novik, and it's basically about this one teenager who is a witch or wizard, and basically when wizards turn 14, I believe, they are basically shoved into this magical school with no way out for like 6 years. But basically it's better to be in here than out in the world, because at least like you can form alliances here. These demons, the Mal, are technically not as annoying in this system. And this book is just like a lot of expose, a lot of world building, and I am someone right now who desperately needed world building so badly. I don't know what it is, but everything I've been reading has just been really half-baked, and just I feel like I'm not getting detail, and I don't know if it's a combination of people being like show don't tell, the idea of like having a window into the world versus like opening a door kind of thing. I feel like there's been a lot of advice that's been given that's good advice, but people have been taking it too far, and now I'm like left with like worlds that I'm like, I could not tell you a single thing about how the religion works, how this works, what things look like, and I'm like, please, I just need a world I can sink into that is just something that it felt like the author really cared about and really focused in on, and A Deadly Education is giving me that. Like, I know it's gonna annoy some people, I know it's not gonna be everybody's cup of tea, but like, I was craving this so badly, and just getting every little expose moment, I'm just like chomping at the bit. I love it. And again, it has the fun characters to back it up. There's a grumpy sunshine dynamic with the girl being the grumpy one, which, yes, again, I like that. Then dynamics, they feel really deep and really nuanced to me. I really love Naomi Novik's writing. It's not really similar to her other books, but I still like this. I just like it a lot. This seems to be a series that people DNF, but I am enjoying it, and I honestly see myself reading the entire series now. So I'm recommending it, but it's also on my TBR list because I do plan on reading it in this season. That's a sneak peek of the TBR portion. And then to finish off, I'm going to give you one fantasy novel that is a chunker, but is going to give you the epicness, is going to give you the world building, is going to give you a little bit of grit. Not really, but it's a humor one, but the world is kind of gritty. And that is going to be none other than Guards. This is one of the fantasy novels that I've really enjoyed this year, so I definitely have to recommend it. If you don't know Terry Pratchett's Discworld, it is an older fantasy series that has like 30 plus books in it. People kind of stand on principle and say you should start with Guards, you should start with this one. And so that's what I did. I read it and I really, really enjoyed it. It's like humor fantasy, it's playing on a lot of tropes, but again, there's heart to it. There's a world that feels full, that feels fleshed out. Even though they're making fun of tropes, there's an epicness to it. It's just really, really fun. I really felt like I could sink my teeth into it, and if you like that like dry British humor, it's gonna be perfect for you. But that's gonna be like my big fantasy recommendation. Let's take a short intermission from the books and get to some manga recommendations. There's a lot of good graphic novels for fall, but if you're looking to tip your toes into manga, I have two recommendations for you that I highly recommend, even for beginners. The first one is going to be Apothecary Diaries. This is one of my new favorite series, and this is an adult series, but it does follow a group of older teenagers, but it is adult. But this series basically follows Mao Mao as she gets kind of wrapped up in court politics. She is an apothecary, of course, and she's using her skills and knowledge as an apothecary, but also as kind of a sleuth to figure out things that are going on. And so if you are looking for like the mystery part of mystery thriller, I feel like this is a great series for you. It has that detective vibe while not getting too detective-y. And just like the idea of foraging and like making different things and figuring out stuff definitely feels very fall to me, so I highly, highly recommend this. And then for a darker, more fantastical manga series, I have to recommend Witch Hat Altair. The anime is coming in 2025, so I'm gonna start recommending it more, but It's one of my favorite ongoing series right now. This I read for another vlog a little while ago. I read it for a vlog where I used my favorite books to tell me what I should read. This is perfect. It is just so beautifully done, beautifully illustrated, a beautiful story that gets darker and darker as it progresses. So if you're looking for a fantasy with a darker edge, this is what you want to pick up. Basically, it's about our main character, Coco, who is enraptured by the world of witches, but she knows she can never be one because she wasn't born a witch, or that's what she thinks, until suddenly, because of circumstances, she finds herself in the world of witches. And so there's coziness, there's wholesomeness, but again, there's like this darker edge of a story going on, and it is just so excellent. So it's going to give you the cozy vibes, but it's also going to give you the darker, more horror leaning, not horror, but like it's going to give you that darker edge that you're looking for in fall. Popping into nonfiction for a moment, I have to recommend one of the nonfiction I love this year, which is Entangled Life. It is about fungi and mushrooms. There's kind of a meandering quality to this. It's very in-depth, but also goes around to a lot of different little tangents, I would say. But if you're looking for a nonfiction for fall, this is one I definitely recommend. Something about fall, you want to read about nature, and I feel like fungi is like the perfect fall nature. And I just found this really interesting, and I feel like it's, again, just a perfect subject for fall to learn about something. There's something definitely a little eerie and creepy about fungi and mushrooms, so I definitely would recommend this. And getting back into novels, we of course have to end with some vampire stories. I feel like vampires are the most alluring to me personally, and definitely the most like spooky season fall. And luckily I have read some good vampire stories recently, especially because vampires are once again becoming popular in fiction. We're just seeing them everywhere. So of course first I have to recommend the OG. I recently read this and I was completely shocked by it. Dracula is a story told through letters, told through different perspectives. We start off with Jonathan Harker, who's going to this mysterious castle to do some work for his boss. I think it's real estate. It doesn't matter. He's doing some work. He's coming upon this really weird situation. And fast forward, we are in Britain, and some mysterious things are starting to happen between a bunch of different characters, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. Behold, it's Dracula. I don't want to be blasé about this, but like as an English student, we kind of get used to reading classics and unfortunately having a lot of not great things about them. Misogyny, xenophobia, racism, and like those things are not absent from Dracula. I want to make everybody aware there's some weirdness, you know. Unfortunately, that's just not something you can escape, but for me personally, I really like discussing those things. I like dissecting them. I loved talking about those things and thinking about them in class. So if you're gonna read a classic for fall, I feel like this is the perfect read to read. It is great mystery thriller vibes. I was on the edge of my seat, really. Again, on top of just being like an actually good book that actually feels modern in a lot of ways, there is a lot to discuss here. There's a lot to dissect. If you want a good vampire story, honestly, you can't beat the OG. And then our next vampire book is one that I recently read, and it's why I'm recommending Dracula, and that has to be A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This has been talked to high heaven. I was anticipating it, but very nervous to see if I would actually like it, and it's one of my favorite books of the year so far. It is excellent. This recounts the history of Dracula through the eyes of one of Dracula's brides. And again, this is just a book I was on the edge of my seat. This is slower paced. It's very character driven. It's not that mystery thriller aspect, but it just draws you in and you just want to know more and more about these characters and what's going to happen to them. The book starts off with the line, like, I had to kill you or something, and like you're slowly like, how do we get to this place? But this is basically, I don't want to say like an allegory, but this is discussing like domestic abuse. So be warned going in, but it is just so well done, and it just feels so delicious to read the words. Like, this just really sucks you in. And I wish I had the original cover for it because I loved it, but I do love this. So those are going to be my recommendations for fall. Again, check out that other video if you want more of my recommendations. But let's get into my own fall TBR. So my challenge is that I am trying to read everything that I own before the end of the year. This always ends up being my goal at the end of the year, which means that I can mood read, but I can't be too picky about it. So while I'm recommending darker, atmospheric, character-driven fantasy stories, I don't get the same luxury with myself, unfortunately. But that's okay because, like I said, people were not just recommending stuff that fit the vibes of fall. People also just recommend big fantasy books, books that you can see yourself curling up with for a good adventure. that again might not have that actual fall vibe to them. So for my first pick, I have The Adventures of Amina Sarafia. I personally am just like in the mood for fantasy. I need adventure, I need worlds, I need world building so desperately. I just feel like I'm not getting it. And I've heard great things about Shannon Chakraborty's first series, which I do plan on reading on some point, but I got this book for very cheap, so this is the one I bought first. But I know it's pirates. Again, that's more of a summer thing to me, but world building, that is definitely a fall thing. But I believe this is about a older woman who used to be a pirate, retired, and she's getting back into it. That just sounds excellent. Continuing on with my big fantasy theme, I have The Oleander Sword by Tasha Suri. I just recently read The Jasmine Throne, and I have thoughts about it, but I want to continue my pace of reading that series and get caught up for the next book that comes out very shortly. So I would like to get to this second book. This is epic sapphic fantasy. It's a lot of court politics. It's a lot of women being like conniving and morally gray, and I love that about it. But I'm very much looking forward to hopefully getting some more world building in this story as the characters progress and grow into each other. I leave off on a very interesting note in the last book, so I'm excited to see where things go from here. But yes, another epic fantasy because I need fantasy right now. Getting into sci-fi, I have The Last Hero by Lyndon A. Lewis. This is a last book in a series, and I'm definitely trying to finish out series at the end of the month too. I don't want to say epic military sci-fi because it's not space opera enough to grant it that. It's very set in these characters' lives, but one side is very heavy military technology, one side is very heavy military religious, and it's like their ideologies battling against each other, and the people that are caught in the middle are not really doing great on either side of this situation. I really enjoyed the first two books. I really love the characters' voices, so I'm excited to see where we go from here and just to see how the series finishes out. Another read that I have for fall is The Absence Underground by Jamie Pacton. I'm gonna be real honest, I don't know anything about this besides it's going to be queer and it has the most stunning cover ever. I'm trying to skim the synopsis. It looks like it kind of has that French Art Nouveau kind of setting that it has on the cover as well. But honestly, this is a short and sweet YA. I just want to get into it, not knowing that much about it, but I'm hoping that it has those kind of fall vibes it appears to from the cover. And again, I'm just excited to get into a book where I don't really know anything about it. And then my next book for fall, I have The Nightmare Before Christmas by Sarah Rask. This is an art copy I got from work. Basically, everybody saw this book and they said, oh, you should give it to Courtney. I don't know what that says about me, but okay. But this is a rom-com, but it's a very interesting rom-com because it seems to have fantasy elements to it. This one is like the Prince of Halloween and this is like Santa's kid, so there's like that going on. Oh, it's saying Marriage of Convenience. Perfect. I love that. As someone who watches Nightmare Before Christmas like the day or the weekend of Halloween because it's the perfect transitional movie, this will be the perfect transitional book. And yeah, it sounds a little weird, but I'm excited. I need quirkiness. I need rom-com. I need spooky, at least fall geared rom-com because I tend to think of them as summer reads. So I'm excited to see what this is all about. So those are the books that I have to recommend for fall as well as what I'm planning on reading. Yes, I'm not necessarily sticking to the fall vibes and atmosphere, but sometimes that's what happens. We can't be mood readers all the time, but I tried to pick out the most fall-leaning books that I could because I am feeling that season and I want to curl up with something. But thank you so much for watching. I would love to hear your recommendations as well as what you're planning on reading this fall season. Again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later and happy reading.